Reanimated. Yes, technically this is a live-action movie, but there are cartoon characters running around everywhere, animals talking, animated characters interacting with humans, so I'm counting it. Barely. And after watching this movie, I have one question. How did this get greenlit? Because Reanimated is one of the most baffling, confusing, painfully unfunny movies I have ever seen this month. And I have watched a lot of weird stuff this month. But this one feels like someone trying to redo Who Framed Roger Rabbit after only hearing about it secondhand. Because the movie wastes absolutely no time telling you how absolutely insane it's going to be. Within the first 2 minutes, we learn three things about the main character's family. The dad is a complete man-child, the mom is an astronaut, and the sister is apparently an alien. I'm not joking. I truly wish I was. That's the level of logic this movie operates on. And that's when you realize something very important about Reanimated. It's not a movie, it's an experience. And I mean that in the worst possible way. The movie follows a kid named Jimmy who absolutely loves cartoons. One day he's visiting a theme park owned by an animation studio called Golly World, which is basically the movie's version of Disney. But while he's there, Jimmy gets into a horrible accident, and the doctors save him in the most ridiculous way imaginable. They give him a brain transplant. Specifically, they transplanted the brain of Milt Appleday, the recently deceased founder of the animation studio, which is already insane, but wait, it gets better. Because this animator's brain somehow gives Jimmy the ability to see cartoon characters in real life. They appear around him constantly, they talk to him, they give him advice, they comment on his life. They basically become his own personal cartoon advice column. Meanwhile, the villain of the movie, an evil executive at the animation studio, finds out about Jimmy's new ability and decides he wants to capture him so he can exploit the cartoon's seed power for profit. That's the plot. And honestly, on paper, it's not the worst idea. I mean, a kid who can interact with cartoons in the real world could actually be a fun concept. Again, Roger Rabbit already proved he could make something like this work really well, but Reanimated feels like the $5 Walmart bed knockoff version of that idea. Because everything about this movie is wrong. The humor, or rather the complete lack of humor, is painfully cringe. And I don't mean slightly awkward, I mean the kind of cringe where the characters pause for laughter, and you're just sitting there wondering if the writers have ever heard a human conversation before. The jokes just don't land. They don't even come close. If you'll think the script is written by someone who read a list of things kids might find funny and just shoved them into random scenes, and the writing in general is a mess. Because after the cartoon gimmick is introduced, the movie basically falls back on the most predictable cliche storyline imaginable. Jimmy suddenly starts becoming famous because of his cartoon powers. He starts getting attention, and he forgets about his friends, and eventually he learns the important lesson that friendship matters. You've seen this story a million times. And this movie somehow manages to do it in the most boring way possible. And then there's the villain. It feels like someone watched a bunch of Jim Carrey performances in the 90s and said, yeah, let's do that. But they forgot one important detail. Sometimes Jim Carrey can actually be funny. But instead you get this over-the-top loud performance that feels like a dollar store Jim Carrey villain. He's constantly yelling, making exaggerated faces, and trying to be wacky, and none of it works. It just feels awkward. There's also this weird dynamic between the villain and the alien girl that feels like the movie's trying to recreate Draken and Shigo from Kim Possible, except it's not funny, it's not clever, and it's definitely not entertaining. And then there's the big question the movie never really answers. Because remember, the main character had a brain transplant from an animator, and now he sees cartoons everywhere. So what exactly happened here? Did the surgery give him magical cartoon powers, or did they accidentally give this kid schizophrenia? Because from an outside perspective, the kid is just talking to imaginary characters all the time, and the movie never really explains it. It just keeps piling on more nonsense. Another strange thing about this movie is the way it spooks Disney. The animation studio of the film was clearly meant to be a parody of Disney. Even the name Milt Appleday is basically a mashup of Walt Disney and My Works. The movie even references the old urban legend about Walt Disney having his brain cryogenically frozen, which is weird because this is a Cartoon Network movie. If you're going to parody animation history, wouldn't it make more sense to reference Chuck Jones or create the Looney Tunes? But instead they just lean heavily into the Disney parody angle, which, again, makes the whole thing feel like a weird attempt to recreate Roger Rabbit, but without any of the creativity or charm. And that's the biggest problem with the film. There are tiny hints of interesting ideas buried inside it. A kid interacting with cartoons could be fun. There are moments where the animated characters have a little personality. But the movie is so overwhelmed by bad acting, chaotic writing, and painfully awkward comedy that any idea that might have worked gets completely buried. After the movie ends, you're not laughing, you're not even entertained, you're not angry, you're just confused. Because the entire time wondering how something this strange actually got made. And the worst part is this isn't even a movie that's fun to watch for kicks and giggles. Some bad movies are entertaining because they're so ridiculous, but the movie isn't that kind of bad. It's just bad. Like, genuinely, bafflingly bad. So my final rating for this movie is a 0 out of 10, a 0 out of 5 stars, and a big, fat F. Do not watch it, not even out of curiosity. Just don't. Because this isn't just a bad Cartoon Network movie. This is actually one of the worst things I've ever watched this entire month.